Imagine a man standing at a busy train station. Hundreds of trains pass him every single day, each leading to a different destination. He watches them, studies them, wonders where they're going, yet he never boards one. He is too focused on the movement of others to take a step toward his own path. Most people live exactly like that man, watching others move while forgetting to move themselves. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a message for anyone who has ever felt pulled in a dozen different directions. Anyone who has ever been tempted to measure their life against the steady parade of people around them. For generations, men and women have made the same mistake, looking outward when the answers they seek dwell quietly within. We live in a world overflowing with noise, opinion, and comparison. But the truth, simple and profound, is this: the moment you turn your attention inward, you gain a power that no one can take from you. Human potential is not discovered through watching others. It is revealed through understanding yourself, your purpose, your values, and the limits you decide to surpass. History has shown us that every remarkable achievement begins with a single individual who made a decision to cultivate their own mind, their own habits, their own direction. As I speak to you now, I want you to remember something vital: your life changes only when you change. Nothing happens until you do. When a person learns to focus on themselves, not selfishly, but responsibly, they begin to attract opportunity rather than chase it. Their thoughts become clearer. Their actions grow deliberate. Their pace becomes steady and disciplined. The world respects the individual who respects their own time, their own mind, and their own development. Consider what happens when you spend your energy observing the successes of others. You drain the energy you could have used to build your own. You step into the shadow instead of walking confidently into your own light. But when you turn your vision inward, when you begin improving one small thing about yourself each day, something extraordinary occurs. You become a force. You become a creator, not an observer. Let me leave you with a line to remember. A person who focuses on themselves becomes the architect of their destiny, while those who focus on others become spectators in their own lives. Your task, starting today, is to take back your attention, reclaim your mind, build the habits, the discipline, and the clarity required to craft a life of meaning. Don't wait for approval. Don't wait for the world to slow down. Begin now where you stand with what you have. Because the moment you choose to focus on yourself, you unlock the door to every possibility your future holds. You become unstoppable the moment you stop comparing yourself to others. It is one of the simplest truths in human development, yet one of the hardest for most people to practice. From the time we are young, we are conditioned, quietly, subtly, almost invisibly, to measure our progress against the movement of those around us. We see someone running ahead and assume we are behind. We observe another person's success and assume we are failing. But this habit, this mental trap, is the quiet thief of personal power. And until a man breaks free from comparison, he will never know the depth of strength, clarity, and creativity that resides within his own mind. When you stop comparing yourself to others, you perform a kind of mental liberation. Suddenly, the chains that kept your attention fixed outward begin to fall away. The mind, once cluttered with unnecessary judgments, becomes a clear instrument again, capable of concentration, innovation, and calm decision-making. A person who lives through comparison cannot hear their own thoughts. They operate from the noise of the crowd, not the voice of their inner compass. But the moment comparison dissolves, that inner voice speaks again, soft at first, then stronger, guiding you with remarkable precision toward your own path. Every individual is a unique combination of experiences, talents, desires, and timing. No two journeys move at the same pace because no two lives are built for the same destination. When you measure your progress against someone else's timeline, you are attempting to compare two things that were never meant to be compared. It is like judging the value of a sunrise by the brightness of a star. Both possess beauty, both possess significance, and both exist for entirely different reasons. Your rise, your unfolding, your timing is yours alone. The moment a man stops looking sideways, he begins to look forward. And when he looks forward, he discovers something profound. Progress happens naturally when pressure is removed. The energy once wasted on envy, frustration, or impatience becomes available for creation, discipline, and self-mastery. You begin working with a quiet confidence, free from the weight of proving anything to anyone. Instead of asking, "Why am I not where they are?" you begin asking, "What small step can I take today to become better than I was yesterday?" That question alone shifts the entire course of your life. You become unstoppable not through force or competition, but through alignment with your own values, your own rhythm, your own direction. A man aligned with himself cannot be distracted by the pace of another. He knows that every meaningful achievement is built through patience, repetition, and the steady application of effort. He understands that the only person he must surpass is who he was the day before, and he realizes, perhaps for the first time, that his potential is not limited by the accomplishments of others, but only by his willingness to develop the gifts he already possesses. And so the journey toward becoming unstoppable begins not with striving harder, but with releasing the habit of comparison. For once comparison fades, the true power of an individual finally comes into view, quietly waiting to be used, shaped, and directed toward the life he is capable of creating. Focusing on yourself is not selfish. It is essential for growth. This truth has been misunderstood for generations, often confused with self-interest or indifference toward others. But in reality, a person who learns to strengthen, refine, and develop himself becomes far more capable of contributing to the world. A weakened mind cannot lift another, a scattered life cannot offer guidance, a man who neglects his own progress cannot hope to inspire progress in someone else. The greatest service you can offer to your family, your work, and your world is to become the strongest, clearest, most disciplined version of yourself. There is a quiet dignity in turning your attention inward. It does not shout, nor does it demand applause. It is the calm, steady work of a craftsman shaping his own character. Every day, through your choices, your habits, your thoughts, you are chiseling the structure of the person you will become. A wise person knows this and gives the task the seriousness it deserves. He does not wait for the world to push him. He does not rely on praise to keep him moving. He works on himself because he understands that the quality of his life will rise or fall based on the quality of his inner foundation. A man who focuses on himself becomes aware of his weaknesses, not to criticize them but to transform them. He recognizes his strengths not to boast but to sharpen them. He sets goals that reflect his values, not the expectations of others. And in doing so, he develops something rare in our modern world: clarity. Clarity that cuts through distraction. Clarity that silences doubt. Clarity that leads him to live his days with purpose, not reaction. Every meaningful advancement in human history came from individuals who possessed the clarity to follow their own path, even when the crowd could not yet see the vision. Focusing on yourself requires courage. It means stepping away from the noise of comparison and into the quiet space where truth lives. It means accepting responsibility for your life, fully, honestly, without excuses. Responsibility can be uncomfortable, but it is also liberating. For once you accept that your progress, your happiness, and your future are shaped by your own decisions, you become free from the unpredictable winds of external approval. You gain control over the only thing you ever truly had control over: yourself. Those who misunderstand self-focus often believe that tending to oneself limits one's ability to help others, but the opposite is true. The more disciplined you become, the more reliable you become. The more you grow, the more you can teach. The stronger you are, the more others can lean on you without fear that you will collapse under the weight. A candle must first be lit before it can illuminate a room. A person must first cultivate their own strength before they can uplift anyone else. So when you turn inward, when you decide to develop your mind, your habits, your character, you are not withdrawing from the world. You are preparing to contribute to it in ways far more profound than you ever could in your unrefined state. Your daily habits reveal your future long before it arrives. A man does not need a crystal ball to see what his life will become. He only needs to observe how he spends his hours. The small, repeated actions that fill his days shape the architecture of his tomorrow. Most people overlook this simple truth because daily habits feel too ordinary, too insignificant to matter. But the future is never built in grand gestures. It is forged quietly, consistently in the unnoticed routines we choose to live by. When you look closely at a person's habits, you can already see the direction of their life. The individual who spends his mornings in thought, learning something useful, strengthening his body or his mind, is silently constructing a foundation that cannot be shaken. In contrast, the man who drifts through his days without intention, reacting to events rather than directing them, is laying down the bricks of a future he may not like. Life does not suddenly change at some dramatic moment. It slowly moves into alignment with the disciplines or the lack of them that we practice when no one is watching. Habits are the invisible forces that guide a person's destiny. You may tell the world you want success, but your habits will reveal the truth. If your actions are not in harmony with your desires will remain dreams. The person who says he wants to be strong but never trains, the one who wishes to be wise but never reads, the one who dreams of opportunities but never prepares. The future will respond to his habits, not his intentions. The universe has always rewarded consistency over wishful thinking. What makes habits powerful is that they work even when you are not paying attention. They repeat themselves automatically, carving deeper paths into your character each day. A positive habit becomes a dependable ally, carrying you forward even on days when your motivation is weak. A destructive habit becomes a quiet saboteur, undermining your progress long before you realize what has happened. Whether you rise or fall often depends on which habits you choose to allow residency in your life. A wise person reviews his habits the way a captain studies the course of his ship. He understands that small adjustments today can prevent great disasters tomorrow. He knows the difference between activity and progress. He recognizes that discipline in small matters leads to mastery in larger ones. Over time, these small choices accumulate into something remarkable. A life shaped not by luck but by deliberate action. And so it becomes clear, if you wish to predict your future, study what you repeatedly do. If you wish to change your future, change what you do each day. Great transformations do not require dramatic action, only consistent direction. Your habits are the quiet blueprint of the life you are building, whether you choose them consciously or allow them to form without thought. In the end, they will reveal what you become long before you arrive there. Discipline beats motivation every time. Build systems, not wishes. Motivation is a wonderful spark, but like all sparks, it fades the moment the wind changes. A person who relies on motivation alone is like a traveler who waits for perfect weather before beginning his journey. He may wait for days, months, or even years, never realizing that the road was always available to him, if only he had the discipline to walk it. Discipline is the steady engine of progress. It does not flicker, it does not negotiate, and it does not depend on emotion. It is the quiet force that keeps a person moving long after excitement has disappeared. Most people misunderstand discipline. They imagine it as a kind of punishment, a rigid restriction, something that drains joy from life. But discipline, in its truest form, is freedom. It frees you from the chaos of inconsistency. It frees you from the anxiety of unfinished goals. It frees you from the trap of waiting for the right moment. Discipline removes uncertainty from your days by giving you a structure that supports your growth. It is not the chain but the key, not the burden but the bridge. When you build systems, you create a framework for success that does not depend on how you feel in the moment. A system is a set of actions you follow regardless of the weather, the mood, or the noise around you. It is the routine that becomes a ritual, the ritual that becomes a habit, and the habit that shapes the trajectory of your life. The man who rises at the same hour each day, who dedicates a small portion of his time to learning, improving, and refining his craft, is building a life that moves with steady momentum. He does not rely on motivation to appear, he relies on the system he has built to support him. Wishes, on the other hand, are fragile things. They are shaped by emotion and easily lost to distraction. A wish says, "I hope this happens." A system says, "I make this happen." A wish waits for opportunity. A system creates it. The difference between the two is the difference between someone who dreams of a life and someone who builds one. Men and women who achieve remarkable things rarely credit motivation for their success. They credit consistency, patience, and the unwavering discipline to do what must be done even when they would rather do something else. Discipline requires honesty. Honesty about where you stand and what you must change. It demands that you look directly at your habits and ask whether they are leading you toward or away from the life you desire. It challenges you to let go of excuses, to stop negotiating with your weaknesses, and to take ownership of every choice you make. And in that ownership, you discover something powerful. Discipline is not a trait given to a select few. It is a skill cultivated through repetition, strengthened through effort, earned through daily practice. And so, when you replace wishes with systems, when you replace fleeting bursts of motivation with disciplined action, you become the type of person who moves steadily toward his goals, unaffected by the rise and fall of emotion, guided instead by the steady rhythm of purposeful action. The world reflects who you are, not what you demand. This is a truth so subtle that most people overlook it entirely. They spend their days insisting, complaining, persuading, hoping the world will reshape itself to suit their desires. Yet life does not bend to words, wishes, or demands. It responds instead to the quiet, unwavering vibration of one's character. A person cannot escape who he is, for everything he touches, every relationship he enters, every opportunity he attracts or repels is influenced by the state of his inner world. The outer life, with all its circumstances, is little more than a mirror faithfully showing the qualities of the inner one. When a man carries resentment, frustration, or fear within him, he begins to see those same qualities reflected in the world around him. The smallest inconvenience becomes an insult. The slightest challenge becomes evidence that life is against him. It is not that the world has changed, it is that he views it through the lens of his own unrest. Another person with a calm mind and a steady heart could walk through the same circumstances and find opportunity, where the troubled man finds only obstacles. The difference lies not in the environment, but in the one who perceives it. The world does not cater to what we say we want, it responds to what we consistently are. A man who wishes for success but carries within him doubt, disorganization, or lack of discipline will struggle to attract any advancement. His internal state will inevitably shape his actions shape his outcomes, and his outcomes reinforce his beliefs. In this way, people unknowingly create cycles, some constructive, some destructive, without ever realizing the cycle began with their inner condition. Life behaves like a wise teacher. It gives feedback, not favors. When you begin working on yourself, your habits, your thinking, your self-control, something remarkable happens. The world seems to shift, but in truth it is you who has shifted. Opportunities that once seemed invisible start appearing. Conversations that once felt difficult begin flowing. Tasks you once avoided become manageable. Relationships strengthen or dissolve in ways that make your life clearer and calmer. It may feel as though the outer world has become more cooperative, but it is merely reflecting the improved order of your inner one. A person who carries clarity attracts clarity. A person who cultivates discipline invites progress. A person who develops gratitude finds that more and more of life gives him reasons to be grateful. This is not magic, it is the natural law of alignment. Your environment bends around your character the same way water moves around the shape of a stone dropped into it. The stronger and more defined your character becomes, the more distinctly life organizes itself around you. This is why demanding change from others, from society, or from circumstance is almost always ineffective. You cannot command the mirror to show a different reflection. You must change the original image. The individual who understands this principle steps into a rare kind of power. The power to influence his world by influencing himself. He stops arguing with life and begins cultivating the qualities that shape a better life. And over time, he realizes that the most profound changes occur not when he tries to direct the world, but when he learns to direct himself. Your mind becomes powerful the moment you take responsibility for your life. This simple truth has been whispered through the ages, yet so few ever grasp it fully. Most people drift through life believing circumstances, luck, or the behavior of others determine their fate. They surrender their power without realizing they possess it. But the instant a person accepts that his thoughts, his choices, and his responses create the quality of his experience, something remarkable happens. He steps out of the role of victim and into the role of creator. Responsibility is not a burden, it is liberation. It frees you from waiting for life to change. It frees you from blaming forces outside your control. It frees you from the exhausting cycle of resentment and disappointment. When a man finally says, "My life is the result of my own decisions," he becomes the master of his own direction. This acknowledgement is not always comfortable, for it leaves no room for excuses, but it grants a level of clarity and strength that nothing else can provide. Most individuals underestimate the power of their own minds because they spend so little time understanding them. They allow thoughts to drift like leaves in the wind, blown by emotion, by media, by the moods of those around them. A mind without responsibility is like an unlocked room. Anything can enter, and anything can influence what happens within. But when a person takes ownership of his mind, when he becomes the gatekeeper of what he allows to settle in his thoughts, he discovers a reservoir of potential he never knew existed. The moment you take responsibility, your thinking sharpens. Instead of reacting, you begin to respond. Instead of complaining, you begin to adjust. Instead of saying, "This happened to me," you begin asking, "How can I shape what happens next?" This shift transforms the entire landscape of your life. Problems become challenges, challenges become lessons, lessons become tools, and tools become stepping stones. Responsibility turns chaos into order. A responsible mind is steady. It does not crumble at every inconvenience, nor does it collapse under the weight of pressure. It evaluates situations calmly, without panic or bitterness. It refuses to hand over control to anger, fear, or doubt. With responsibility comes discipline, with discipline comes clarity, with clarity comes power. The mind becomes a precise instrument, capable of directing energy toward meaningful goals rather than scattering it on complaint, comparison, or regret. People often search for strength outside themselves, but real strength begins the moment you stop expecting life to be different and start shaping yourself to handle life as it comes. When you take responsibility, you stop waiting for someone to rescue you, to motivate you, to validate you. You realize that everything you need to begin is already within your reach: the ability to think, choose, act, and improve. From these four abilities, every great life has been built. And when a person embraces this truth, he discovers that his mind is not a passive observer, but a powerful engine capable of designing the future, regardless of where he stands today. Solitude is a workshop where great futures are crafted. Many people fear being alone, believing that solitude equals loneliness, that silence is emptiness, and that stillness is stagnation. Yet history has shown us that the most remarkable achievements, the deepest insights, and the truest personal growth have been born in the quiet hours of solitary reflection. A person who learns to embrace his own company begins to hear the subtle voice of wisdom that is drowned out by the constant noise of the world. In solitude, the mind becomes clear. When a man removes the distractions of opinion, expectation, and external pressure, he can observe his own thoughts without distortion. He can measure his goals honestly, evaluate his habits without bias, and plan his actions with deliberate purpose. Most people avoid such introspection because it reveals uncomfortable truths. They may see where they have wasted time, misused energy, or allowed fear to dictate action. But this discomfort is necessary. It is the heat in which character is forged. The greatest minds of all time understood the power of solitude. Inventors, writers, leaders, and philosophers often retreated from the crowd to cultivate their ideas. They realized that the world cannot grant you insight. Insight comes from within, and it requires space to emerge. A person surrounded by noise, constantly chasing approval or attention, leaves little room for the quiet development of strategy, vision, and creativity. Solitude provides that room, a private laboratory where the self can be refined, where thoughts can be tested, and where the imagination can wander freely before being channeled into action. Solitude also teaches discipline. When you are alone, there is no one to impress, no external accountability to lean on, no distractions to justify procrastination. You must confront yourself, your habits, and your intentions. You must decide whether your time will be spent wisely or squandered. This confrontation is not always easy, but it is transformative. In the absence of others, you learn to rely on your own judgment, to trust your own decisions, and to build the confidence that comes only from doing so. Moreover, solitude allows a person to hear the quiet voice of ambition and purpose. In the bustle of social life, ambition is often diluted by comparison, envy, or distraction. But when you are alone with your thoughts, your goals come into sharp focus. You can examine them, prioritize them, and plan a course of action that is true to your own values. In this workshop of the mind, you begin to see not only what you want, but also the exact steps required to achieve it. Each day spent in reflection becomes an investment in a more disciplined, more aware, more capable self. Finally, solitude teaches patience. The world moves quickly, and it is easy to demand immediate results or seek constant validation. But the person who embraces time alone learns that growth is a process, not a spectacle. He understands that the work done quietly, thoughtfully, and deliberately builds foundations that endure. Rather than fleeting moments of applause or recognition, the greatest competition you will ever face is the person you were yesterday. Most people spend their lives measuring themselves against others, chasing victories that belong to someone else, and envying achievements that were never meant for them. They look outward for benchmarks, unaware that the only true standard of progress exists within themselves. The battle worth fighting is not against neighbors, colleagues, or rivals, but against the habits, doubts, and limitations that held you back yesterday. Until a man realizes this, he will forever be a spectator in his own life, applauding the success of others while his own potential lies dormant. The truth is that every individual possesses a unique set of talents, experiences, and opportunities. Comparing yourself to someone else is like comparing two different instruments and expecting them to play the same note. No one else has your exact mind, your exact circumstances, or your exact timing. The only fair and meaningful measure of success is the progress you make against your previous self. When you adopt this perspective, every action becomes purposeful, every effort measurable, and every day a chance to advance along your own path. Improvement is a cumulative process. Small victories over yesterday's weaknesses compound into substantial achievements over time. A man who replaces one bad habit with one good one each month, who chooses one act of courage over fear, or one thought of clarity over confusion, is quietly reshaping the trajectory of his life. It is rarely the dramatic or public acts that define a person. It is the private victories, the silent decisions, the small, consistent efforts that accumulate unseen until the results become undeniable. The competition with yourself demands honesty. You cannot grow without seeing yourself clearly, without acknowledging your flaws, mistakes, and moments of weakness. Self-awareness is the compass that guides improvement. When you identify yesterday's errors, procrastinations, or missteps, you gain the opportunity to correct them today. And when you correct them, you gain momentum, confidence, and self-respect. The man who refuses to confront himself remains trapped in repetition, while the man who embraces self-reflection accelerates toward mastery. Moreover, this internal competition fosters resilience. Life will inevitably place obstacles in your path, and the world will offer no guarantees. Yet the person who has consistently measured himself against his own past is equipped to adapt, to persevere, and to rise above setbacks. He has already developed the habits of self-correction, discipline, and intentionality, which are far more valuable than temporary motivation or fleeting luck. By focusing on becoming stronger, wiser, and more capable than yesterday, he builds an enduring foundation that no external force can easily shake. When you dedicate your energy to competing with your former self, you liberate yourself from envy, distraction, and unnecessary stress. You no longer squander time comparing outcomes, chasing validation, or feeling inferior. Every challenge, every choice, every effort becomes a personal benchmark. Your victories are authentic, earned, and deeply satisfying because they reflect progress over the person you were, rather than imitation of someone else. This mindset transforms ambition into clarity. The goals you pursue become aligned with your growth, not the applause of others. Every action taken becomes deliberate, every obstacle becomes a lesson, and every achievement becomes a milestone marking your journey of self-mastery. The only race that truly matters is the one you run within yourself. Progress begins the moment you stop waiting for permission. Too many people spend their lives paused, waiting for someone else to give the signal, to grant approval, or to declare that the time is right. They wait for the perfect conditions, for the ideal circumstances, or for a sign from authority, believing that without external validation their actions are invalid. But the truth, simple and unwavering, is that the universe does not hand out permission slips. The only authority required to begin to act or to change your life resides within yourself. The moment you recognize this, progress ceases to be dependent on anyone else and becomes entirely your own. Waiting for permission is the silent thief of opportunity. Each day spent hesitating is a day when life continues to move, indifferent to your doubts or desires. Those who wait often find themselves years behind, still hoping for approval that never arrives, while those who act independently gain the experience, momentum, and results that cannot be purchased or granted. Progress is never achieved by standing idle. It is earned through initiative, courage, and the willingness to step forward even when the path is unclear. When you stop waiting for permission, you claim responsibility for your destiny. You no longer blame the world, your environment, or the opinions of others for your lack of progress. Instead, you take control of the one thing that truly determines the quality of your life: your decisions. A man who acts without waiting learns faster, adapts quicker, and grows stronger with every step he takes. Even mistakes become valuable, for they are lessons earned by action, not regret. Waiting for permission is a slow teacher, action is a rapid one. Consider the countless pioneers, innovators, and leaders who have shaped history. Did they wait for approval? Rarely, if ever. They acted because they recognized that waiting would guarantee nothing but stagnation. They created, they experimented, they failed, and they tried again. They understood that the world does not owe them opportunity, and that progress is reserved for those who claim it through initiative. By acting first, they set the course for success while others remain paralyzed in indecision. Taking action without permission also builds confidence. The more you act on your own authority, the more you trust your own judgment. You learn that you are capable of navigating uncertainty, handling setbacks, and shaping outcomes. With every step forward, you reinforce the belief that your life is yours to command. External validation may be pleasant, but it is not necessary. Real power comes from self-reliance, from understanding that no one's approval is required for you to move in the direction of your goals. Waiting for permission is often rooted in fear of judgment, fear of failure, or fear of overstepping boundaries. But fear is a poor counselor when weighed against the value of action. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is acting in spite of it. The person who begins without asking, who steps forward without hesitation, finds that the world often adjusts in response. Doors open, opportunities appear, and momentum builds, not because permission was given, but because initiative was taken. And so progress begins the moment you recognize that permission is unnecessary. It begins the moment you decide to trust yourself, to take responsibility, and to move forward with deliberate action, understanding that waiting guarantees nothing while action opens every possibility your life experiences.